I got it mostly.
You got most of it.
Yeah, I just also have to apologize to your viewers that I'm not confident enough in Sinhala to answer this interview questions in Sinhala. That's why I'll speak in English.
I'm also not confident enough to ask you questions in English, but what to do? I invited you to the interview, but can you explain what happened in Egypt?
So what happened actually started back in Sri Lanka. I have to start the story there. As you mentioned about the Madeleine, like groups all over the world, we gathered in Sri Lanka at Liberty Circle to demand the release of the Madeleine crew. And as a spontaneous action, people walked from Liberty Circle 400 meters away to the Chabad house, which is just off Flower Road in front of Cinnamon Red. We only had a group of about 40 people there, and we were genuinely surprised by the force that we were met with. The number of police that were posted at the Chabad house, the way the police responded to us in telling us that we were not allowed to stand there, that they're providing a different kind of protection. But
I think it's okay. Answer the phone.
What did they say? When ආරක්ෂයක් මෙහි තියෙන්නේ or something?
When a rajya.
Ne.
When a arakshavat. Which means like different kind of protection.
Yeah. So then we were asking them also, what do you mean by that, and why? Who are you protecting? The police are paid with the public's taxpayer money, so they should be protecting Sri Lankan people. As we saw in the parliament also a few months ago, it was deemed illegal for foreign nationals to start setting up places of religious worship or
without proper approval.
Exactly. And we found out recently that these Chabad houses are actually set up, registered as businesses. But due to what happened after that day and with the arrest of the Madeleine crew, I felt very helpless in terms of what is happening in Sri Lanka with the Israeli takeover, and also what is happening globally and what is happening in Gaza. So very last minute, I decided to book a ticket and go and join the global march. I flew on the 12th.
You went alone?
Yeah, I went alone. I knew one friend, comrade, who was also joining. She was flying from Sicily. She's also quarter Sri Lankan. So I went, arrived in Cairo. I got my visa on arrival. So I think it's important to note, actually, one of the reasons I decided to go was because I have dual citizenship. I'm a Sri Lankan British citizen. So I use my British passport. And I think it's the responsibility or the obligation of people that have a privilege, passport privilege or otherwise, that should do these kind of actions. So I went.
Actually, people in a Madeleine boat, they also use that privilege.
Exactly. So that's the same view I had about this, and I knew that, as far as I knew, there were no Sri Lankans joining. But there were about 56 countries taking part in this march, and I felt it was significant for at least one Sri Lankan to be there or try to be there. So I arrived. I got my visa on arrival. I paid $25 for the visa. They gave it to me. They actually stamped my passport at immigration, and then I was taken aside. They didn't tell me that I was being detained. They didn't say anything, actually. Then they checked my luggage. The way that the Egyptian authorities dealt with us actually was disgusting. They didn't...
No, I was like, it was Egypt. It's not Israel. It was Egypt.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, as far as we know, even though Sisi's government professes to be aligned, I mean, not aligned, but in support of Palestine, we know that they are complicit in the genocide of Palestinians with Israel.
That's how, that is how powerful US and Israel is.
Of course. And I think we also know that the US is giving a lot of money to Egypt to also pressure them to act in accordance with what Israel wants.
Very similar to what's happening in Sri Lanka, I think.
Of course. With Egypt, they don't want floods of Palestinian refugees coming in, but Sisi also needs to balance the the wishes of the Egyptian population, most of whom support Palestine. So the authorities, they checked our luggage. They took absolutely everything out, basically like it was strewn all over the place. They found my kafiyeh, which is the Palestinian scarf. And
white and black checkered scarf.
Yes, exactly. And it's also interesting to note that when I was detained, it was with 3 other people. One was a man from Sudan, also carrying a British passport, and the other 2 were white Americans, or at least one was American, but they were both Caucasian. And the way that they dealt with me and the Sudanese man was very different to how they dealt with the 2
white people.
Yeah, of course. Should be expected, right? So the 2 Caucasians were actually let go afterwards. Me and Umar, the man from Sudan, were held, and basically they just led us here, led us there, said stand, sit, follow, and took us outside the airport and told us to get into a van. But they did not say that we were detained. They did not say that that we were being deported. Oh, and this whole time they were holding our passports. So at first I refused to get into a van because common sense told me you don't get into any van anywhere if they don't even tell you what's going on. So Omar left, I remained, and while I stayed in the airport, I was trying to ask the immigration officers, what did I do wrong? Did I break the law? Was there anything in my bag that was illegal? Nobody said anything. Nobody gave me any answers. There was really nowhere to go because I didn't have my passport anyway. So ultimately, they put me on a flight and sent me back to Sharjah in the UAE because I came there through transit. Reached Sharjah, still hadn't got my passport back, and after hours of waiting and trying to ask what was happening, I was told that had to go back to Sri Lanka.
Okay. How long did you?
I think the whole ordeal was about 15 to 20 hours. My passport was withheld from me, and it was only given back to me once I landed in Sri Lanka after another almost 4 hours of questioning with the Sri Lankan immigration.
Who what did they ask, and how it happened in Sri Lanka?
So they were quite confused, first of all, as to me being a Sri Lankan, not being able to speak Sinhala fluently, and also saying that usually their protocol is to send people back to the country of origin from the passport. And because I flew on a British passport, there was no way I was going to get on a flight to the UK after all of that. But and then they just asked their standard questions of what happened. But as far as I could see, they had no idea about the march to Gaza or about, hundreds of people being detained and deported from Cairo. They did not specifically ask me if I went there to join the march or went there to protest. They just asked me if I went there to travel, what I went there to do. I said travel. So it wasn't technically lying.
Yeah. But and if you didn't do any crime, you didn't carry any weapon, you didn't do any crime, I think even in Egypt, I think you had right to enter. I don't know if there are any law in Egypt.
According to the Egyptian authorities, I didn't have a right to enter because they listed me as a security threat. That was the reason that they gave for my deportation.
Yeah, okay. The security threat is near them, biggest.
Exactly. It's ironic.
Yeah, and okay, so now why, Gianna, did you go to that? You told me before this interview, this story is not your story. This is not about you. And you said you don't want spotlight to be on you. And you didn't go for any popularity or anything.
Exactly.
So it's you want to talk about what is happening. Why? Why? The question is why.
Yeah.
And can you connect it to the whole, this protest movement? I think 2 years, for 2 years. We started, I think, we all joined the first protest on October 2023 when Israel started attacking. We did first protest in front of, as I remember, in front of UN, and we did protest in front of US Embassy. And then until now, I think more than 100 protests, I think. Like so many. Like,
can't even count. Yeah.
So many protests. And now it came to this point. What is happening, and why like people are going to the Gaza now?
So there was a lot of questions there. So I'll start with why I went, which is like you mentioned, what I said before this interview, that's what the focus needs to be on, because as we know, hundreds of activists were turned around and deported, detained, had their passports withheld, and none of those individual stories should be the focus of this. Because none of what any of us went through is as bad as what the Palestinians are going through. And the focus should not be on demonizing the Egyptian government either. Sure, they are complicit and they should be held accountable, but we need to maintain the focus of criticism against Israel and against the United States. So why I went was because even right now, currently, Gaza is in a complete media blackout. Even the aid workers, the international aid workers that are inside Gaza have not been sending their usual status updates that they are alive. We haven't had any news coming out of Gaza for I don't even know how many hours now. And Israel is using starvation as a war tactic. We know this is a war crime. It's just one out of many war crimes they have committed.
Now we can't count.
On the long list, exactly.
There's no international law they didn't violate, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and we also see that most of the aid distribution has stopped. There's so much aid lining up at the borders. But the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, GHF, which is actually a US Israel-backed aid organization, you can't even call that aid or humanitarian, they are actually luring Palestinians in and forcing them into situations where they are clambering over fences and then getting shot by the IDF. They're bringing them into one place because these people are starving, trying to feed their children, trying to feed themselves, and then shooting at them. So I think that no matter what happens surrounding the Palestinian issue, in support of the Palestinian issue, we have to always keep bringing the attention back to actually what is happening in Palestine. Otherwise, this digital real estate and the amount of stories that are coming out are not actually focusing on the real issue. So yeah, that's the reason I went, because of Palestinians' 76 years of ongoing land theft and displacement, constant oppression, and how do I even say all the things they have gone through?
Yeah.
So
the total terrorism, I don't know, I don't know how to explain in English, but in Sinhala, I think like sampurna trasta kirimak, like people are terrorized, I think.
Generations of people.
And genocide, I think.
Yeah, they have been genocided. Their land is being stolen. They're living under apartheid. And like you said before, there is no war crime that Israel hasn't committed. And we just see the complete impunity of Israel on a global scale, that not any ICJ rulings, not any UN resolutions, no governments, nothing is working to stop this genocidal war machine. So the Global March to Gaza was a citizens' action, just people, ordinary people from all over the world who just felt like, they could no longer stay silent and do nothing in the face of this live stream genocide. So that is why I chose to go. And I don't think that the people who did choose to go, whether from Sri Lanka or from anywhere else in the world, should be, applauded or considered, in this heroic light, which people seem to be doing here. All of them are just ordinary people who want to do something. And the other reason I went is because we see an Israeli takeover happening in Sri Lanka as well. A new wave of colonization happening in Sri Lanka. And in this last 2 years, like you said, we can't even count how many protests and how many actions we have held here in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, different parts of the island. And it is always the same handful of people that are attending. Most of these events, as you've seen, they just get like 10, 15 people.
Yeah.
While our own country is also being colonized by Israel. we see Israelis coming on tourist visas and setting up illegal businesses. They're buying land all over Sri Lanka, especially in the south and east coast. They're exploiting our tourist industry and repatriating all that money back to Israel to fund their genocide. So Sri Lankans that say that Israelis are helping the economy or, supporting our tourism industry are wrong, actually. They're also white supremacists. They're racist towards Sri Lankan people.
You have some kind of knowledge about tourism industry, I think.
So I work in the tourism
Yes.
industry, and I have also lived in the South Coast, different parts of the South Coast over the last few years.
You always see you are living in this let's say tourist areas.
Yeah.
So
I've seen this with my own eyes, and we see the Sri Lankan surf culture being completely altered by the presence of Israelis.
Okay.
Sri Lanka has world-class surfing, world-class waves. Surfers are coming to our country from all over the world, and now Sri Lanka surf culture has garnered quite a bad reputation because of aggressive Israelis in the water. A lot of these IDF soldiers coming in, they are also severely traumatized because of the horrendous acts that they themselves have done to Palestinians. So they are highly damaged people, very aggressive, and then they come to our country, to get away and take a break and release all this aggression on Sri Lankans and other tourists in tourist areas. And we also see these Chabad houses and synagogues, multiple of these being popping up around the country, even though our parliament says that it's illegal, and they are getting 24-hour protection from our state authorities.
Yeah, and when so many people all over the world, I think let's say even in Europe, so many people are now against what is happening in Palestine. So they have some kind of anger, and maybe so many people are joining protests. Those kind of people are coming to Sri Lanka as tourists. When they see Israel people and Israel, let's say businesses and propaganda and everything in when they come, where people have to listen to their songs, or people have to meet them in bars and public places.
You cannot avoid them. There's so many. That's
so how that will affect tourism industry.
They hate it.
Yeah.
I have heard so many people say, countless people say, avoid this area in Sri Lanka, like Ahangama, avoid Weligama, avoid Hiriketia, avoid Arugambe, because you will be surrounded by Zionists. You will be surrounded by Israeli flags, by Zionist propaganda, stickers all over the place that show pictures of IDF soldiers, IDF propaganda. It's really disgusting that Sri Lanka is becoming a canvas for this Zionist propaganda. And at the same time, our government is sending workers to Israel, which just as of today is now again, it's a war zone. They've bombed Iran and Iran is retaliating. So how can the government ensure the safety of our Sri Lankan workers in Israel?
Yeah.
It's absurd and unbelievable, and we know that already 14 countries, if I'm not mistaken, have banned Israeli passports, including countries in Southeast Asia, in the global South. So if they can do it, why can't we do it?
Yeah, so the protest movement is now came to a point. Now people are trying to go to Gaza to support. That is they are putting their own lives, including you, in threat, in danger. So why is it happening? And how, let's say Israel's war machine is still running. I think it's running according to their will. But their propaganda machine is broken. The people in the world are now people know the truth.
They're waking up.
So
maybe you saw that quote that we aren't freeing Palestine. Palestine is freeing the world.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what you said is true. Their propaganda machine isn't working anymore because we no longer have to rely on mainstream media and listen to their narratives. We know that the Palestine issue is actually not just about Palestinians. And I think that's the answer to why people are willing to put their lives on the line, whether it's Greta Thunberg on the Madeleine or just an ordinary person from Sri Lanka who tries to join the global march to Gaza, is because the Palestinian issue represents the entire broken, ugly, socio-political, economic system that is underlying all the issues that we see globally, from climate change to genocide.
The crisis.
Everything. It is just the perfect example of this sick and broken system. So people all over the world are joining this cause.
So I think now someone said, like, so many people wrote that Madeleine isn't going into the Gaza. Like, they knew that this is going to, like, Israel will stop them somehow. Like, maybe they will kill them, or like maybe they will detain them, or like send back to the countries. So even this vehicle parade, people know, like, this will stop, and you were stopped. So many people were stopped, and like I don't know, like, how, like, the result, like, people will see what will happen, like, after we recorded, like, what will happen to the parade. But like,
right now, the updates that I've been getting live from my friend who is there is that they're preventing the march from going forward. And they've also deported a lot more people from the Sumud convoy as well.
Yes. So they will know, everyone will know, like, we will be stopped at some point. So what is the point of going there? Like trying to go there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, when you feel helpless, I guess you have two options. You can either continue to act and do whatever you can in your power, using whatever privilege that you have, and you can keep trying, knowing that you are alongside, millions of other people, billions of other people that are trying in some way. Or you can just sit at home and cry about it and do nothing. But you can't do nothing and expect things to change. Even if you try something at all, attempting to make a change is better than doing nothing, in my opinion. And especially when we have our own stake in this with our own country, I don't view this as an issue separate to what's happening here. Like I said, this Palestinian issue represents all issues, and everything in this day and age is intersectional. So we should all be doing something about anything, because the world we're living in is a scary place.
Okay, so what will happen next? No one stopped Gaza. Like, no one's, like, we couldn't stop this from happening. Like, millions people are still protesting, and like thousands of people are trying to go there, but like no result came out of it. Like, people will say, like, no result, like, because this machine is going forward. So what will happen next? What is is protesters winning? Like, what is happening? What is your opinion about, like, what will happen next? And like,
it's honestly, I don't know if I'm in a position to answer that question. I just know that even though we feel that some of these efforts are futile, that actually they are affecting change in ways that we might not always see. But like you said, the Israeli or the genocidal propaganda machine is broken. That's already a huge win. The BDS movement, the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, is probably the most powerful way to affect Israel at this point. And so many banks, countries, businesses are slowly waking up and cutting ties with Israel because of public pressure. So all of these kind of actions are helping to maintain and increase that pressure, because no social change in history has ever come about without, a huge amount of pressure. And as long as people keep acting, we can increase that pressure. And I think at some point, just like every empire has fallen in history, we can bring about change. and the Palestinians can be free. But obviously, it feels like that's a long way away, given the impunity that Israel is being allowed to act with. But I don't know really what will happen.
Okay, I think leaders in the world, I think they are not doing anything. Countries, all the actors couldn't do anything. UN is like meaningless. I think that is the lesson we are learning, and that is a lesson the whole this generation of people who are protesting is teaching to the world.
Definitely.
And this, like, when we are going forward, I don't know, in next 10 years, 20 years, the history here is not written by the winners. This was written by Gaza. This chapter, this paragraph is written by Gaza. I think those people who are dying, who are in danger. Gaza is the hungriest place in the world right now, and I think that is the win. We can't but that is something we are getting out of it.
And like you said, that people all over the world are realizing that governments and politicians and institutions that are founded basically on colonization, on genocide, on capitalism, are never going to be the solutions to the problems that they themselves create. So I think that's huge. Palestine issue has woken up the world.
Yeah, and the brutality and the barbarian nature of this Western world, now it is revealing in when they are attacking Iran also. I think that is revealed. And that is something we are getting out of it. And I think next, what will happen next is we have to build whatever happening next. And I think our generation, without any power, our generation can do something. And I am thanking you for trying to do something, but I think here we need so many people.
We need a lot more people. And we need Sri Lankans to really understand that they have a part to play in this. Yes. And if we don't actually stand up now, even for ourselves, if the Palestine issue feels too far away for Sri Lankans, that we will end up like Greece or Goa or Cyprus or any of these places that Israel has completely taken over. So people definitely need to get more active.
Yes, and so thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
And let's try to do something. And we are protesting, and we are protesting about issues here too. And you were in the Aragale. So,
if at all, the Aragale showed us how a decentralized, leaderless citizens' action, people's movement can have a huge impact and affect huge change. It took us 2 years to see that change, right? And still, it's not like we have gotten everything that we wanted, and it's not like the current government is perfect. Even when it comes to the Palestine issue,
but it is better than
it's still we achieved something that no social movement in the history of our country has ever been able to achieve.
So yes, thank you, Gianna, for joining us. But I have small issues because you did something dangerous. I was talking with your close friend, and we were talking this is you are in danger. We didn't know what was happening, and she couldn't tell anyone else. And so we were kind of concerned, and we were thinking people like you should be here. So but we knew, but we understand what you try to do, and let's try to do something. And thank you for joining.
Jai Veva.
Jai Veva.